A warm welcome back to the channel. You know what time it is, time to take a look at your latest industry developments, and there's a lot in today's video. Global Airlines has an update regarding its Airbus A380s. China Southern has ordered new aircraft in a bit of a deja vu moment, and there's some losses posted at Air France-KLM. Let's begin with Global Airlines, a prospective startup airline based in the United Kingdom. It's flown its first Airbus A380 from the desert to the United Kingdom via Montreal. Registered as 9HGLOBL in association with High Fly and still painted in China Southern colours, the aircraft was ferried to Prestwick thanks to High Fly Malta, who basically operated the flight. Over the last few months, the aircraft has been undergoing fundamental tests in the Californian desert, alongside seeing its first flight there. These tests are obviously essential before it could be cleared to make the lengthy journey back to the UK, where obviously a lot of work will be done. An arrival at Prestwick also marks the first time the Super Jumbo has touched down at the local airport, and as a result, you probably saw that there were lots of crowds flocked to experience the historic day, and maybe one of you watching this video was actually there. Ferrying the A380 back to the UK represents another important step in what is only a long-winded process before Global can officially launch scheduled operations. But who are Global Airlines? Because flying an Airbus A380 from California to the UK as simply a startup is no small feat. So, who are they and what are their long-term ambitions? Essentially speaking, Global Airlines wants to redefine travel with a fleet of only Airbus A380s. Once airborne, the mission is to fly these aircraft towards Los Angeles, New York as part of its initial route map, with operations based at London Gatwick. As more Airbus A380s arrive, the company wants to extend its network to every part of the world. Global also wants to have an inside cabin product that makes you flying on their aircraft a true moment in time that will be unforgettable. Some pretty big ambitions here. They had hoped at launching operations towards the middle of 2024, but obviously we are rapidly approaching that point, and that tight of a deadline is not going to be able to be met. So in terms of an date of launching operations, that certainly remains unclear. And given all these ambitious plans, Global Airlines has received its fair share of criticism from not just the public and obviously people in our wonderful community, but also analysts. One thing though you cannot fault is the strong levels of ambition that are present with an endeavor such as this. But firstly, it is the business model that is being targeted. It's incredibly high risk to the point where it's maybe pushing the boundaries. The airline is obviously looking to operate with a fleet of inefficient aircraft that saw production cease several years ago. This is additionally an aircraft type that you've got to remember has struggled commercially with many airlines that just couldn't make the jet work in the fleet. And remember, these are long-established companies, not startups. Additionally, Global Airlines wants to base itself out of Gatwick and fly towards primary airports. It will face related pressures thanks to this, whether it be the ability to obtain slots, traffic management, space at airports, and all other substantial fees. And at this stage, it doesn't really appear to be a company that has the amount of money necessary to make this entire operation possible. That, though, isn't for a lack of trying. Then you have the plane's integrity. Because of its age, some think a complete retrofit will be required for every aircraft, which means substantial costs. Global has also received pushback for its persistent misinformation about obtaining an Air Operator Certificate, or AOC, and the unclear nature of just how many Airbus A380s it's actually acquired, with probably 4 times now the airline saying it purchased its first A380, but then a couple months later saying the same thing again. Alongside executives targeting media parties who have criticized their business or discussed it in a more negative manner. So the startup has undoubtedly received mixed reactions, but despite this, the company is powering along with the funds it does have, obviously, attempting to achieve its dreams sooner rather than later. over to Air France-KLM, who have become the latest airline group to publish a loss for the first quarter of 2024. Group's operating loss came in larger than expected at 489 million euros. According to the airline's financial report, though, the loss was primarily driven due to one-off payments that were made to KLM staff members. This feels like a very common occurrence, that one of the largest reasons why your airline groups have been reporting poorer results has either been payments to staff, increased wage bills, or labour disputes. At the end of the day, it's very much relating to your employee base. In response to the loss, Air France-KLM joined Lufthansa Group in announcing plans to cut costs across the short term. While first quarters typically see companies underperform following normally a strong end to the year, these losses have been abnormally high for airlines and their associated groups. Across the first quarter, the group said it saw capacity increase by 4.5% over the last year. Additionally, load factors actually remained at pretty solid levels, 86%. Representing a 0.4 percentage point increase year over year. 20.9 million passengers were welcomed across the Air France-KLM services. This was 6.2% above last year's levels, with a 4.5% capacity increase. In a commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emissions, the group said that by the end of March, 21% of the active fleet comprised of your next-generation aircraft. This was a jump from the 17% at the end of March 2023. The hope is, by at the turn of the decade, 2030, this figure will be closer to the 80% region. Markets such as Latin America remained very strong, with significant load factors, even with capacity down around 2%. Meanwhile, capacity across Asia and the Middle East saw some of the biggest growth, with 31.8% rises thanks to the ongoing stability of these locations in the last year. However, regions such as Africa saw drops as what Air France-KLM describes an ongoing geopolitical issue that has affected the ability to offer the schedule it probably would have ideally liked. On to the last story, and a bit of deja vu, but China Southern Airlines has become the second Chinese company in the space of a week and a half to announce an order for COMAC jets. A purchase included 100 incremental COMAC C919s, which is becoming a very popular aircraft within the portfolio. China Southern says that deliveries will run between this year and 2031 in a very similar fashion to Air China, and both of these were unveiled through the stock market. Ultimately, such a deal is worth billions in list price value. However, you'd imagine heavy negotiations likely allowed the end price to drop off massively. China Southern operates a mixture of Airbus and Boeing narrow-body units from your A380 family to the 737 MAX, but COMAC views its C919 as truly the perfect competitor to these aforementioned aircraft families. The manufacturer, though, has really struggled to garner interest outside of China. Additionally, the aircraft from Airbus and Boeing, even despite the latter's difficulties, are viewed as substantially more reliable and probably your safer option. Therefore, it is hard for COMAC to really push into your Western markets, such as Australia or the United Kingdom. China Southern also purchasing this aircraft really completes the big three within China committing to this aircraft type. China Southern, China Eastern, and Air China have all backed the C919. Interestingly, these three state-owned companies have all committed to the same number of jets. It remains unclear on how the C919 will replace or grow the company, but at least for China Southern, they believe it will alleviate some capacity demand pressures. That's going to conclude today's aviation news recap. If you've got any thoughts, you know the best place to leave them is down below in the comments. Thank you very much for tuning into this video. Please take care, do also be safe, and I'll see you same place, same time tomorrow for your latest aviation news. And we'll fly.